everyone. This looks like a private session. That's good. I hope you're comfortable. We are. And then we can get started a little bit here. So I'm Dirk Schart. I'm the president of RE'FLEKT Inc., the company that is building the enterprise AR ecosystem. And we thought AW is the right place to share some of our learnings from the last couple of months and also talk about what we've built so far together in our collaboration between ABB and RE'FLEKT. Because, you know, in the AR industry, we talk a lot about scaling, we talk about rollouts and all of those things. But then in reality, we often struggle with arriving at a POC or knowing how can we go to a pilot phase or even how to deploy all of those things. And therefore, I'm super happy that I have Kim with me because he helps us every day to understand better how such a large corporation works and operates and how we can provide value to that. So I'd say, Kim, tell the audience a little bit about who are you and who is ABB?
Okay. So, although it doesn't look like it by my youthful appearance that Dirk keeps reminding me about, I've been around quite a while. So I've been in the industrial automation business here for, I guess, 32 years or so, software and digital mostly. And I've been, through the years, I've worked on everything from hardware to some of the initial control systems, right, to now the bleeding edge stuff with augmented reality. So, and for those of you who don't know who ABB is, we're a leader in industrial digital industries. So we do industrial software for digital industries, and they touch every piece of your lives. So how we power the world, how we produce things, how we work, actually how we live, and even mobility solutions, so how we move. And we do it through 4 businesses: electrification and industrial automation, motion, and robotics. And we do it by building solutions that cross all of those boundaries on a single digital platform. So that's who we are, that's where we've been. I got engaged with augmented reality because it's a promising technology, right, to move us forward and help the customers improve their experiences.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about value creation and what we see here on the slides. We have a lot of different things coming here from predictive maintenance, analytics. So we have new ways of collaboration. We have new ways of visualization. We also have new ways of automation at the different levels. So where do you see the role, or where do you see the impact of augmented reality when it comes to the customer value?
Yeah, so brief history lesson. So initially in the automation space, right, we had isolated systems and isolated networks, and all of that data was stored individually, right? So that data was stored individually and it was used individually, and if I wanted to look at it, I would have to go look at multiple screens or multiple databases. As we moved up through the digitalization chain, or the digitalization lifecycle, right, we're now to the point where we have all these systems connected. So we have connected operations, and it's leading us to more collaboration. The challenge now, and one of the questions, one of the conversations I commonly have is, okay, I have my connected systems, and I now have data from all these different systems, but what do I do with it, right? I'm collecting the data, I can see the data, but it has no context. It doesn't mean anything to me, right? So as we move up the digitalization change, one of the things that I see AR is going to do for us, it's going to help us to make all that data meaningful. So rather than looking at it individually or looking at it on a trend chart or looking at it in a database, I can now actually visualize it, apply some advanced analytics, attach some IoT data, and ultimately artificial intelligence. So now I can look at a device, recognize it, and associate data with it. And I can take the data from multiple sources and make it make more sense.
So can you explain a little bit also about how is ABB doing that today? How is ABB using the dashboards today? And then how do we take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, well, generally, right, we have all this data stored in single databases, and you mentioned it, right? So today it's a lot of dashboarding, right? So we'll build a dashboard from the data from multiple sources and display it as best we can. But in many cases, it's still not aggregated or it's still not associated with each other, right? We see a bar chart or a graph, and we see a process value, for example, but I don't know maybe what happened in order for that process value to appear, right? So when there's process upsets, we have bad actors, we really have no way to dig into the correlation between the data.
Well, let's go one step further into the life cycle. We see a lot of things here from design and build and operate. And we know there are some fields, of course, where AR is getting adopted, where AR is already providing the value. We know, of course, in the maintenance area or in training and the service parts, there we see the value already. But then there are, of course, other phases and other fields and scenarios like maybe the design, where we're not at the point to provide the biggest value, or we take the assembly where we maybe have some technical challenges, where we maybe need to have more machine learning also involved in AI, involved in AR. Where do you see the most relevant touch points across the life cycle right now at ABB?
Yeah, so first I'll say, for the most part, it's all about the customer experience here, right? So everything's gonna have data attached to it. We're going to have data in the design phases. We're going to have data in the operations phase. So the more we can do to bring all of that data together, again, and I'll use this term often, the more meaningful it is, right? And if I have meaningful data, I can now take actions based upon that data. So by tying together touch points such as we've got the design data and we connect that to the operations data, we can do an analysis, if you will, of how things are operating versus how they were, right, built to operate. And maybe they're operating correctly and the design data was wrong. And if that's the case, then we can take that data from the operations phase and roll it back into the original as-built drawings, so we know moving forward that that is the proper, right? That's the proper data we should be focused on. Right? So it's all about closing the life cycle from design through maintenance, through optimization, and it's going to allow us to better support the plant, right, over time, because we now have a single source of data, we know the data is accurate, right? And we can then carry that on and better train our people, we can provide better support. In the case of augmented reality, we could actually do support remotely, right? So if I can show somebody a 3D model of the piece of equipment and put live data on top of that, now maybe I don't need to send somebody to site, right?
And how is, well, you talked about a customer experience. How are customers experiencing it? So what is the feedback there? Where is the biggest need?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, what all our customers are trying to do is improve performance, right? So that comes into optimizing the process, extending equipment life to reduce downtimes. So that's where all this data, the more we have from the design phase, right, the more we can analyze and review and see what makes the most sense, right? If we can apply some analytics to it that tells us this is the way it's worked in the past based on historical data, here's how it's working today based upon live data, we can then even do some predictions in the future as to how it's going to operate maybe 2 days from now, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a plant, for example, and the plant's been running fine, but I have a piece of equipment that's outlived its useful life, right? So simple analogy here would be a transformer or a motor. If I have a motor that I need to replace that's crucial to my operations, But I can't get that motor anymore because the specs have changed, right? It was 15 years old. I now need to be able to evaluate what happens when I put the new spec motor in, right? So by having all of the data, having the 3D model and the augmented reality, and actually being able to connect all the data together with some simple simulations, I'll be able to know when I plug that motor in, what's going to happen.
Right. Well, that brings us to the right side of the slide, what we have here, and that's probably also one of the buzzwords we have in AR, right? So we all want to have the digital twin. And if you ask 10 people what is the digital twin, you will probably have 12 opinions on that. So ABB has, of course, a bigger vision for AR. ABB has the customers, ABB has the data, ABB also has a need. So what is when we talk about tomorrow, what is the master goal for ABB in terms of AR?
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately, AR is going to be a big component of a digital twin, right? I mean, in simplest form, a digital twin is a virtual representation of an object or a system that has operational awareness, meaning I have live data attached to this digital representation. So I can look at it and see at any point in time the data for a specific point, right? I mean, if you look at a simple example of a car, everything we know, right? So a car could have multiple digital twins. The engine's a digital twin. Maybe each wheel's another digital twin. So, but overall, we have a digital twin of the entire vehicle. If you scale that to a plant and think about, say, a power plant with 1,000 pieces of equipment and moving parts, if we can take all of that and put it together into one overview, right, using augmented or mixed reality, see KPIs, and then blow it up and zoom into a specific location of the plant that may be acting badly, right? That's going to allow us to get to a resolution quicker.
Right. So let's talk about solutions and what we've done so far. And we want to share that a little bit and talk a little bit about that. So what you see here on the slide is on the left side, a typical environment for a collaborative operation center of a lot of dashboards, a lot of analytics, a lot of data, some real-time screens, and then on the right side you see a part of that solution we've created and built in the last couple of months. This is part of a bigger thing which we call the Lighthouse project. There are several things involved and several things identified. And there are two things I really like about that solution. Not only that I was involved creating that, but one is the way, and maybe I have to add that one point that you can better understand that was introduced, or has been introduced at ACW, which is the biggest customer event for ABB, and there it has been shown the first time live. So what I really like about that is the way the ABB team told the story about that. And there was not one customer demo where they mentioned AR or augmented reality, right? I mean, if we guys would show that as an AR company, of course we would talk about AR all the time, because this is what we do. But your team, they just showed, well, look, this is the data we have. There is a problem somewhere, and this is how we solve it. And there was, of course, involved remote collaboration, and there was involved then visual guidance with step-by-step instructions, and you could do that in different ways. But they showed that to the customers in 5, 6, 7 minutes, the whole procedure. Customers understood that completely without getting distracted by any kind of technical wordings. So that's one thing. And the second thing I really liked about that was that the ABB teams were involved in all of that. So it was not like that we came up with that idea and said, okay, you know, here we have AR and now let's build something cool. No, they figured it out. They said, well, this is the problem, and there we have a workflow, and created the content, And I think that's a completely different basis. So my question for you here is, because you're the one with the answers, I'm only the one with the questions. So how did you identify this specific scenario?
Yeah, so to add to what you said, right? So again, it's really all about the use case, the outcome, what problem are we trying to solve, right?
Right.
There's a lot of technology out there. Technology solves a lot of problems. But if you just throw technology at something that's not a problem, the results aren't going to be what you expect them to be. Right? So in this case, what we built was guided maintenance procedures for a flow meter, for example. And the reason we approach that is, I mean, there are a number of reasons, right? So we have millions of these devices on the market. You may buy them from an ABB marketplace. You may buy them from a distributor, a system integrator. They actually may have been put on the plant when the plant was built, or the piece of equipment. So ultimately, we lose track of these devices. And we cannot control the quality of service that our customers get, right? So in this scenario, though, right, we know we have lots of devices out there. We know from our systems integration network that our customers are struggling to support them. And we also knew that we had the 3D content and the expertise that we needed in order to build the guided maintenance procedures, right? So there's a lot that goes into this analysis. We didn't start with something that was going to be a one-off or two-off or just work on one or two pieces of equipment, right? So we went after, I would call it the low-hanging fruit in this case, where we knew there was a lot of value that we could bring if we could just make self-maintenance available to the customers that have our equipment, right?
Right.
I mean, ultimately, it's a branding issue, right? So I have this piece of equipment, it says ABB on it. I know it needs fixed, but I don't know where to go. Well, here you go.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is you just mentioned customers can buy that different locations. You can buy that at reseller or at the marketplace or directly at ABB. So can that, or how does that help you to ensure a certain level of quality for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, today, right, I mean, it's early, right? It's early phases. We've just developed maybe one or two guided maintenance procedures for this piece of equipment. So the way we're going to get that out to the market today is going to be through our systems integrators, right? 5 years from now, what I would expect is that it's an expected deliverable from our customers, right? So rather than selling just the device, leaving it to the customer to maintain, finding somebody to maintain it for you, maybe our deliverable includes this whole list of guided maintenance AR instructions, right? Which again, it's a huge quality improvement for what we can provide today to our customers, right? We may not actually have to perform that maintenance, but it improves the experience, and the customer now knows, hey, if I buy from ABB, I get a way to help myself maintain this device.
Right. So let's jump, well, let me see if we can, yeah, okay. So that's a part of the solution, and you can see this is filmed live. I was before the show, just to get an impression. It's very simple for the users to handle that. I said it's one part, that's the visual guidance I mentioned with the instructions. So the other part is then the remote collaboration, and all of that comes together. If you want to see more about it, you can also stop by the booth. You can also find both of us there. It shows you really in a very simple way how to do that, and guides you step by step through that process. All right, so I also want to talk a little bit about how can we bring that now into the large companies. So in our case now, problem identified, we know how to solve it, we know we can provide value, all of that we have, but there are still some roadblocks that has to be removed on that way to a rollout. And we see some of the things here is management commitment, some dollars, of course, are involved, education, IT. Is there anyone from IT department here? No?
Or they don't want to admit it, right?
That could be. So you guys, if there's anyone, you guys are really important in that process. And my message is, if there is anyone here from IT department, you know, pave the way. You can be the hero in that game. So don't be the blocker. Be the hero and help your business units to do that. It's new and it's challenging, but it's great. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the roadblocks, and I think we can get started there with the proof of value. We talked about with problem identified, solution there. So how do you prove the value?
Yeah, it's all about doing it, right? I mean, if we want to prove the value, we need the experiences, and we need to have the data, right? So in this case, for this particular use case, we just built it and we showed it to the systems integrators, and now it's about rolling it out and getting true feedback from the customers to tell us, yes, it's valuable, and here's what it's done for us, right? And then once you have that proof of value, the rest of this becomes so much easier, right? We can prove that we're actually solving a real-world problem. We can get buy-in from the customers, for one, and then we can also get buy-in from the management, which leads to everything else, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about proving that value. And if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to have the data that we can use to prove the value. And by starting with something, I would call it relatively simple. I mean, it wasn't horribly simple, but it wasn't horribly complex either. By starting with something that makes sense, there's a valid use case for it, once it's in the market, we're going to learn more use cases. I mean, I have a list of use cases which we've defined internally that make sense. Our customers have validated, but we don't know what we don't know.
Right. So, well, let's pick another one. I think we have the time to do that. I would like to pick the business model, if that is okay for you. And the reason for that is I see a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities in finding the right models. So usually we come from the software side, so we have the SaaS models, we have the subscription and license models, and of course we are in a very innovative company, and all the AR companies are very, very innovative. We do a lot of disruption and all of that. But then we meet a traditional, also innovative,
right,
but traditional company with existing structures, processes, and business models. And I think sometimes we think we can change all of that from today to tomorrow, so how we do it in a startup. But I think there is also a need to better understand what are the business models, how is a service contract working, and how do we have to adapt to that? How do you see that?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest challenge areas, I think, in a large corporation, right? I mean, we're a global company, we've got offices all around the world, and each support center is different, right? So we may have a support center that today their business processes directly align with a service agreement and the way that they would support that customer. Then we've got other larger support centers who do things a little differently, right? So they have levels of tiered support. In the past, you would call in, well, currently you call in and you get somebody who answers a phone, we call it level 1, and then they direct your call to the right person, right? In many cases, we're going to need to modify some of those processes, right?
Right.
I mean, in the future, when this technology is rampant and we have it in the service contracts and all of our customers are using it, we may not need 4 levels of support anymore, right? We may be able to connect directly with level 3, for example, right? And again, it's all about the customer experience, which we solve the problem faster because we don't have to go through the chain.
Yeah. So, well, let's jump to this one. So we ran through it. We explained about how ABB is doing that today. We showed a solution and how you can do that. We talked a little about the roadblocks, and of course, we want to give you some key takeaways. So that's based on our learnings and our experience from that collaboration. And Kim, the first 3 are yours.
Yes, they are.
Right?
I thought you were going to take them.
No.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, some of the things we've learned here, and it's not rocket science. I mean, so have a big vision, right? I like to look at this as don't slay the whale, right? So have a big vision, know what you're trying to accomplish, but start small. I mean, don't build the AR experience for the entire plant because it's going to take years and most likely you'll never be successful. Pick something that makes sense and build upon it, right? Which is what we've done with this use case. And be thoughtful, be practical. Again, know the problem you're trying to solve, understand the desired outcome, and ultimately know that the customers are trying to solve the same problem, right? I mean, we could pick something. We could pick a problem that ABB is trying to solve, but if that doesn't help our customers, then we've wasted time and effort. And this is the one I talk about a lot, but at some point, somebody is going to have to take a leap of faith, right? We talk about getting management commitment, getting funding, getting backing. Somewhere along the way, there has to be a visionary who's going to take that leap of faith just because they know it's the right thing to do, and there's a lot of opportunity there. We're early stages, right? We don't have all the data.
Right. Well, that's a challenge. So you always need a person driving that. So messages here, you all need to have a Kim. So that's the way how you do that. So I have two. Don't just play around with AR. I know it's happening a lot, but don't forget, we're going from these early markets to mainstream markets, and we try to cross the chasm. And therefore, it's not really helpful to just play around without having a business case in mind or to identify something like that. And then the last one is learn from the enterprises. This is what we're doing every day together. You cannot change how a large corporation acts and operates and works from today to tomorrow. We're working on it a lot. But I can tell you, of course, that takes time, of course. So you have to understand how the processes are in order to provide the right solutions. All right, so do we have questions? I know we have Slido and we have 44 seconds left. Do we have any questions? Here we go. So first one, what is your experience with customer adoption?
It's mixed, right? Some of the customers see the value right away. Others don't see it and they need to be shown. So for those innovators, if you will, it's pretty simple. There's a lot of large corporations with innovation departments and they get it. Others, we're going to have to hold a hand and take them on a journey.
Right. So, and there's another one. Is there integration with the customer as a database to continue to develop? To develop and maintain a holistic view of the customer?
No, that's not there yet, right? I mean, that's what, in this case, right, that's why all the industrial automation companies are building a platform or there's connectivity standards that can be used. But total integration is not there from the augmented reality folks. But again, we're early stages. It will be there. It has to be there in order for this to be successful. Absolutely.
I fully agree on that. So, well, we're running out of time. Well, thanks for coming by. We really enjoyed it. I want to close that with one quote from this interview, because this is my key takeaway when you said AR turns data into a meaningful format. Thank you. Enjoy the show.